Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Drinks Lou, and I am joined by the Shants 27 for my solo gal shenanigans. Shants, how are you doing tonight?
Love some shenanigans, and my favorite character in Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide is actually Gao. So this is right up my alley. This is a dream come true. Thank you, Drinks Glue, for making it happen. But what are we doing here tonight? What is the purpose of our particular stream here?
So this will be a submission for the Summer Games Done Quick Marathon, happening over the summer. Obviously, Summer Games Done Quick. Nevertheless, I wanted to try something a little different for a submission, almost like a challenge race. So what we have tonight is, I have a gentleman's agreement with myself. With that, I will use Gao. I will only use Gao. I will not use any other characters. Throughout the game, I will not use them as meals. I will not use them the weight trick. I will not use them whatsoever. They will only walk in instances where I have to split my party, such as Phoenix Cave and obviously Kefka's Tower. And that's it. Gao will take the show. This flag set is revolved around our mythical flags with some small twists just to ensure I can complete it. But nevertheless, this is Gao's time to shine.
Yeah, so let's take a step back from that a bit and let's talk about what even is Worlds Collide. It's a Final Fantasy VI open world randomizer. You have control of the airship and you can go between the World of Balance and the World of Ruin whenever you'd like. And in order to complete the game, the goal is to defeat the final boss, Kefka. And in order to defeat Kefka, first you have to unlock Kefka. And in order to unlock Kefka, in this particular case, we have to find 6 characters, or 5 extra characters, because we're starting with Gao, remember. And we have to find 9 pieces of Magicite scattered throughout the land. And these particular rewards are given to us at the different various world events that happen in the vanilla Final Fantasy game. So for instance, we have Gao, who you can recruit in the vanilla game on the Veldt, and you could also go through the Serpent Trench. That's one of the world events that's unlocked by Gao. And there's lots of different things randomized in Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide. The items that are in chests and shops are randomized. The bosses are shuffled amongst their locations, same with the legendary dragons. Mm-hmm. And the things that your characters can wear are also randomized. I believe, though, in this case, in order to give us a little bit of a fighting chance, Glue, we have Gao being able to equip anything, basically.
Yep, so Gao will be able to equip anything in the equipment pool. I do these solo challenges with a couple other characters, and I found that if you don't do one of the big four are Terra, Locke, Celeste, and Edgar, because they have the default best equipment pool in the game. When you do characters like Gao or Cyan or Strago, you have to up that a little bit just to ensure they can equip some of the stuff that's required to get through the final boss. Typically in a Worlds Collide seed, you're going to start out with anywhere from 2 to 4 characters, but with one, I'm going to have a very linear path. And by path, what I mean is what Swaz was talking about with the checks. We'll be visiting a lot of pivotal story moments throughout Final Fantasy VI, but kind of a condensed version, so we won't be throwing our gold off the edge of the cliff when we visit Serpent Trench. We're just going to go through, get in the trench, traverse through, get our fights, and then we'll get a reward at the end of it.
Yeah, thinking about it, it's more like the short version. If you've ever seen Spaceballs from Mel Brooks's perspective, we're cutting out all of the story elements and dialogue, and we're just going to do the things. Some of the other things that are also randomized are that our abilities are randomized. So you see here, Gao has Sword Tech and Morph. We'll find some other characters throughout our run, and they will also have randomized abilities from what they are in the vanilla games, including some abilities that were temporary, like Leo's Shock or Banon's Health. That could certainly come up in our particular case. Another thing that's randomized is the spells that Espers teach and the bonus that each of the Espers have. So we may never know what type of spells we will learn. We do know, however, with that flame shield in a chest, we will learn Fire 2 at some point during the seed, because the flame shield teaches a tier 2 version of the element that it is associated with. It also will absorb any fire damage and nullify ice damage. Though, as we mentioned, the items and shops are randomized, so Drinks Glue is now going to be looking for some dried meat, which will be very important to do the Velt check that we mentioned for Gal. And we also briefly mentioned that the world events here in Worlds Collide, the places where you can get rewards, one of the interesting things about this randomizer is that the rewards are what they call character gated. So each character opens up new parts of the world, so you can't just do everything from the vanilla game at once. You need to sort of get characters in order to open up the different paths throughout this seed here. So whatever character we find next, when we find them, we'll talk about what parts of the world they open up. As we mentioned, Gao has the Serpent Trench and the Velt. The only other spot that we can get a character is at Kefka at Narsh, the Kefka-Narsh battle. That is not what we call a character-gated check or option, so there's a potential that we could find our character up there. I don't know how that works with the one character start, because you have to split your party.
I've actually figured this out, the way it's looped the logic. So it can be required that you have to go through Kefka at Narsh, but it won't be required until you find at least one character. For example, it is entirely possible I find a character on the Velt, which is one of Gao's 2 checks. That character could be Cyan, for example, who will lead us to 3 other checks. One of them will be a multi-part check. There could be no characters within those checks, so now that I've done all of Gao's checks and all of Cyan's checks, now I can do Kefka at Narsh, which is the way through the seed, with it being the next character.
Okay, very interesting to know. So we might see that at some point. And so with that in mind, there sort of is a logic through the seed where with Worlds Collide, you're guaranteed to finish the seed in order to get all of your characters and all of your espers. The game's code makes sure that there is a path where you can get to all 14 characters and all 27 espers in any given seed. So sometimes when we talk about logic and where we're going to go next, it's based on this character gating concept and the fact that all Worlds Collide seeds are completable in that particular way. So the first 5 to 10 minutes, I think, Glue, of any Worlds Collide seed is going through just a few different areas of the game to go loot the treasure chest, because again, treasure is randomized, and to go check out the shops. Shops are randomized, just to see what we have. What are the things that you're looking for here besides that delicious jerky that you just picked up?
So I am looking for things to complete my Gao build. This is a little interesting in from a normal flag set or a normal seed where, okay, I find something for one character, great, that character's, it's an S tier piece of equipment, like an Illumina or a Ragnarok. That per character is set. I don't play with him anymore. I do kind of want a couple of different builds for my Gao for various spots. For example, if I run across a Magimaster, I need something that can pierce his high evasion along with being non-elemental. And Illumina is fantastic, but Illumina is not going to be able to do that for me. So I would need to be able to have an Illumina on for most of the seed, and then I would need to pivot to something else to get through that fight. So, as Schwantz said, we're running around now, we're just looting. If we don't like the loot we find, we obviously sell it, and then we'll find some stuff in shops that we prefer. And we just kind of keep going until eventually we're ready to start taking checks and whatnot.
So, you did mention the Illumina, and you also mentioned fight, but I noticed that Gao has Sword Tech and Morph and Item, and eventually when we find Espers, he will have Magic. So Gao can't actually use the fight command in this run, can he?
In this role of the seed, he won't be able to, but for example, if he has Capture, he's able to attack, and if you have an offering equipped with a Capture character, they will swing that 4 times. So while Gao typically does not attack, there are some cases where you can make him attack, and obviously too if he has his rage ability. Pairing some of the better rages in the game with some of the better items or better weapons in the game is really powerful. Arguably the most powerful one is Cat Scratch, which does 4 times your normal damage or the physical attack, and then just pairing that with an offering, it can get out of hand very fast.
So one of the other things I really like about Worlds Collide is that isn't what Gao looks like in 90% of the Final Fantasy VI vanilla game. This is only what Gal looks like during that one brief cutscene where he's trying to impress his would-be dad that demands that Sabin always fix his piece of equipment, right?
Yep.
So in Worlds Collide, we have actually many different sprites thanks to our wonderful community members that you could actually decide to go ahead and use in any given run. And there's a pretty important relic that Drinkskaloo picked up. It's called an experience egg. And in Worlds Collide, or in Final Fantasy VI rather, the most important thing are levels. The more levels you get, the more damage you do. And both the physical damage formula and the magical damage formula for attacks are based on your level, or they factor the level into that damage calculation somehow. So what does that experience egg do for you?
It's going to double the amount of experience I get from every battle, so that is huge early. In Worlds Collide, we have a concept called scaling, where the scaling will be scaling determines what your monster's levels are. So it's based off the number of characters, espers, and 8 aged dragons I have defeated. We take that number, and in this particular flag set, we take that number, we multiply it by 2. There is an invisible number that's a plus or minus of 1 or 2 that gets assigned to monsters and enemies levels, so you can't manipulate them with certain abilities in the game. But nevertheless, right now I have 1 character. 1 times 2 is, I think 2. Correct me if I'm wrong there. So right now I am
level... stream is dangerous, so let's make sure we know this answer.
So as I progress about, I do have the option to potentially get 1 Esper if I visit the Zen Thief, which is in the vanilla game, is where you acquire an Esper for a little bit of moolah. That amount of moolah you pay is also randomized in Worlds Collide. I'm probably going to go get that Esper, actually, if that is an Esper. And that will add 1 to my Esper count, which means now my monsters will be right around level 4.
Yeah, so unlike in other RPG games, which are scaled, or the enemies are scaled based on the location that you're in, Worlds Collide doesn't have that concept. Our scaling is based off of, well, progression, characters, espers, and dragons. It could also be based off of the number of world events or checks that you've done. It could also potentially be based off of how much time that you've played, right? There are many different settings that you can go over on ff6worldscollide.com to go and, tweak some knobs and turn some buttons and slide some sliders in order to craft your own personal experience.
So a little tidbit there. I bought that mithril knife because, 1, it's a great value. In this economy, you gotta take any deal you can get. But 2, in the Moogle Cult flags, all items in the Coliseum, all the rewards are visible. So what I like to do is kind of stock up on some of those little odds and ends, and that just gives me a better chance at when I make my way to the Coliseum, or if I decide to make my way to the Coliseum, that I could get one of the better items in the game.
Yeah, so in Worlds Collide, the enemies in the Coliseum and the rewards that you get in the Coliseum can also be randomized. They could be shuffled, or they could be vanilla, right? There's a lot of knobs and tunings, as I mentioned before. So with grabbing, a few random tidbits here or there, Drinkskaloo can ensure that he has a better chance to land a really, really nice item out of the Coliseum. One thing I did notice that you bought, and I hate you for this because it's my least favorite item.
Did you notice that?
Is you bought a pair of Marvel shoes. You bought some Jordans there. Normally, it's my least favorite item in the game, just because it is probably the worst item that you can get as a high tier item for one of these world events. But I think in a solo seed glue, it has a lot of very good positive properties that will certainly help your character get through some battles.
It may be a piece I take with me to the final fight. It also depends on what else I find as well, and then what spells I learn, what espers I find. There's a lot on the table. I'll get a better picture as I work my way through the seed. But I can honestly never put them on, and I'll just put them in the closet, and that would mimic real life, because I have a lot of shoes in the closet I just feel like I don't wear.
Well, listen, if you keep them in a case, one day you'll be able to sell them for a lot of money. I hear the used sneaker market is popping off right now, so
they'll go
hold
on
to those Marvel shoes
pretty immediately after the seed.
Also, finding a hero ring in a chest is also really nice. So in Worlds Collide, more so than the vanilla Final Fantasy VI game, it's all about that offense, no defense, to quote a famous rapper. So we want to make sure that we increase the amount of damage that we're putting out, because the best defense is a good offense. Am I right or am I wrong?
Oh, no. Final Fantasy 6 is a very easy game. You kind of, the challenge isn't so much that can you beat it, it's how fast you can beat it. So with that in mind, I will have a little bit of a little struggle going on. There are a lot of first fights I can come across that are very scary. But once I get a little weight under my belt, or a little get my toes in the water a little bit, I should be off and going.
All right, so at some point you'll take the swimmies off and you'll be fine.
Yep.
You won't need the pool noodle. You'll be swimming in the deep end after a bit. I appreciate that. So we've found some dried meat. We've done a couple of looting and shopping. Do you think that you're ready now at this point to go try and do your first check, or are you still looking around for a few more things?
I am, but we're going to do a fan favorite.
Oh, wow.
Miranda does have 2 chests. This one right here, 5,000 GP, I like that. And there's one more in the back. The downside to Miranda is that there's only a weapon shop and an item shop. There is no accessory shop or item shop, but it's a nice little fun spot to visit every once in a while, just to show off.
It's a very quick, dip in, dip out, very fast. And wow, look at that. There is a Ragnarok there. So you've seen it, folks. Go to Miranda, get Ragnarok. That's one of the best swords in the game there. Unfortunately, Gao is not using the fight command, so we won't get as much mileage out of that as we would have in a quote-unquote normal seed. So now you have it. It's official. It's in canon. It's in stone. Go to Miranda, get Ragnarok.
So I could probably afford that Ragnarok if I sold off a bunch of stuff, but we're going to do this. I'd rather see if this is an Esper or not. Because this could be a huge boon if this is a stat boosting Esper. Ooh, it's only 22,000. So that is very much in my price range. That's
pretty good. I see inflation hasn't hit the world of Zen in this timeline. So you can actually go and buy that Zen Thief item for a different price in the world of Ruin. But since 22,000 is pretty cheap, Glue is going to go ahead and purchase that anyway, and that'll be our first shiny stone. Come on, get out of the way, Magitech guy. The NPCs are the real enemies in this game here, folks. They're the real final bosses. So one fun thing that Drinks Glue has just found in the shop are Super Balls. You want to explain a little bit about what a Super Ball is and why you're buying it, besides the fact that you can get them out of a quarter machine for a kid?
Well, now that I have my Marvel shoes, I'm ready to jump higher and run faster, and now I need a ball to put in a hoop to show that off. So actually, what Super Balls? Oh my goodness, a cat hood. I also would have took the cat hood for Super Balls, but nevertheless,
well,
we're on the way.
This is what happens when you this is why your parents tell you don't spend it all in one place, right?
Yep. So Super Balls will do non-blockable damage. They will do a random number between 256 and about right short of 6,000 damage. They can do
8196.
81. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, multiples of 256. So if you're a programmer like myself, you're gonna have a field day with Super Balls, where you're gonna really test your hexadecimal skills on the Super Balls. It deals a random amount of a multiple of that sort of for damage here. Gao is pretty kitted out pretty well, and unfortunately that Esper only gives us MP plus 50% upon each level up, so it's not nearly as good as, say a Strength plus 1 or Magic Power plus 2 Esper, but we're still going to learn some spells on it, hopefully.
It's all right.
And we're going to have Sortech carry us for a little bit. Unlike in the vanilla Final Fantasy VI, Sortech was slow. So we decided that we are going to increase the rate at which the meter ticks up. So Sortech is actually a pretty usable ability in Worlds Collide, given that a lot of the Sortechs are very powerful commands. Sortech 1, for instance, ignores physical defense. So enemies that have lots of high defense they are going to go down to our Sword Tech 1. And we just saw Terra show up on the belt. We fed her some dried meat, and now she has joined the party. Normally, we would create a build for Terra, and we would assess what Terra is going to be doing in our party for the rest of the seed. However, since this is a solo gal run, our green-haired girl is unfortunately going to still wonder General Leo's love soliloquy on the boat there and try and figure out what that's all about. I heard her favorite song is Foreigner. I want to know what love is. So Terra gives us access to 5 different areas of the world, and this is one of them here. The Imperial base with these nice juicy treasure chests down here on the bottom. And we also get access to the cave to the sealed gate, which we could additionally loot and run through. At the beginning of our seed, we do give our runners 3 sets of Moogle charms, which allow them to be equipped in order to avoid those pesky random encounters that take up so much of your time. We do this to accomplish the speed run of this, otherwise we'd be here for hours and hours and hours. And the second reason why we do this is because if our runner wants to take off the Moogle charm and get some levels before going after a boss, let's say, they're allowed to take off the Moogle charm to basically re-enable the forced encounters. It's kind of similar to the mechanic in the Pixel remaster where you could just turn them on and off.
Yeah, the Moogle charm, being able to equip a Moogle charm on everybody makes Worlds Collide really easy to learn and get through. For example, in the vanilla game, there are a number of spots on different maps where there are no encounters and you have to learn a bunch of different step routes. Like, for example, the little switch at the bottom of Magitech Factory where you fight Ifrit and Shiva. The spot beneath the crane that pulls you up, that is a no encounter spot. So you kind of need to step on that spot at certain times based on where your encounter step rate is at when you are in that portion of the game. And in short, you basically need a master's degree in multiple subjects to be able to learn and memorize all that. In Worlds Collide, you don't need none of that. You just equip the Moogle charm and you just can learn the maps much more freely and much more easily.
So I noticed you did pick up some rods. So similar to the vanilla Final Fantasy VI speedrun, is we're going to use some rods early on at least to clear out some of these enemies. Rods are very powerful because when you use them as an item in battle, they do a maximum damage, unblockable tier 2 version of whatever elemental spell it is that you break. So Drinks Glue decided to pull down on that lever, and the encounters rather in this game are also randomized. So normally in the sealed gate, you'd fight something else besides those proto armors that you saw there. And by pulling on that lever, you could take that fight over and over again as many times as you want, because we've normalized the encounters across the different areas of the game. So if that was a more lucrative fight, I think you would have pulled on that lever a few more times, huh?
I would have. I had a little game plan here. I was going to get through the trench and then kind of reassess. But really, Terra is the only character I could have found on the belt that kind of throws a wrench into everything.
I'm glad I vetted the seed for you and threw a wrench into things.
Terra, as you can see, it takes you about 2 minutes and 50 seconds on average. Oh my goodness, another experience egg.
Yeah, just in case you missed the first one.
It takes you about 2 minutes, 50 seconds on average to get through here, and then you can take a little bit more, grab a few more chests, but it's so chest dense, and you get so many chests for your time invested, and then obviously you get a piece of progression, or you can get a piece of progression. In my case, I did not. But while I'm still in the early part of the seed, I'd almost be forced not to go through that and go in and do that now.
Yeah, so at the end of the sealed gate cave, you could either be rewarded with a character, an esper, or an item. And in this case, we were rewarded with an item. So I briefly mentioned that there are 5 different world events that are opened up to us with Terra. So let's talk about her other 4 world events besides the sealed gate cave. We also have Zozo Tower, where she first transforms into her Esper half in the vanilla game, where you go and talk to Ramuh at the top of Zozo Tower and fight Dataluma. We also have the Welk spot, where she has fried up to 30 of Vector's greatest Magitech soldiers at once. There is also the Elite River, where we hop aboard our raft when we try and make sure that Bannon doesn't die, but that jerk always somehow seemed to die in the vanilla game. And then we have in the World of Ruin, we have Mobliz, where you recruit her in the back half of the game, where you fight Funbaba. So in Worlds Collide, we decided not to shuffle Funbaba into the regular boss pool for the first phase of that fight. He'll blow 2 of your characters away, and in this case, he'll blow 0 of them, because Worlds Collide makes sure you always have 1 character to fight that boss. And then the second boss in Mobliz will be randomized. So Drinksglue is eschewing all of the Terra checks and is going to instead hop into the Serpent Trench here, where we could fight between 3 and 5 forced encounters. And this is a really nice check to do very early in the seed, because there is no boss at the end of the Serpent Trench, and it allows us to get some levels. So what's your strategy going into here?
I really like this earlier than later for the reasons you mentioned. That's what I was kind of talking about earlier when I said the first couple of fights are a little scary. There is nothing I can do about that with 1 character. You just kind of reset and move on. And there's other fights that will do zombie status, that can do instant death, or level 5 doom. That's just kind of the risk when you have 1 character in your party and you're a fool to do this, but that's okay. I know I have a ribbon.
Yeah, I was going to say, so what adjustment are you going to make in order to go back into the Serpent Trench here? So the ribbon will prevent all negative status elements, essentially, right? So those fossil fangs that you fought won't be a problem with that particular attack anymore. And the nice thing about that set of enemies is that both of them are undead. And in Final Fantasy VI, you could actually kill an undead enemy instantly by throwing either Revivify or a Phoenix Down at them. So we'll see if Drinksglue decides to go with that particular strategy here, or if he just wants to use Sword Tech 1.
I might as well use my Phoenix Downs, because I can't use them to revive my other party members, so...
Yeah.
So fun little factoid. There could be a small use case where I would need a Phoenix Down. That would be if I went to the Colosseum and I lost my Colosseum fight. What the game is going to do is going to plop Gao back into my party, and he's going to be dead. So that doesn't do anything to me right now in the moment. But if I don't catch that, or if I don't catch that, and I may have done this before, if I don't catch that, go trigger another encounter. I start off the encounter dead, and I wipe.
So we have a suggestion in chat. Any way you could go over to OBS and turn your game volume down a smidge? Otherwise, I'm going to have to yell. And nobody wants to hear me yell. So.
Game volume is down.
Wow, 13,000 GP from that fight. You are now rolling in the cash, and that is a direct result of the Cat Hood that you purchase. The Cat Hood is probably the best helmet in the game. It does some magical damage nullification, or not nullification, but reduction. So 4 different elements it will reduce by half, and it also gives you the most amount of GP for the fight that you can get. This is going to be a rather difficult fight here, though. But this might be
This might be a turnaround and go somewhere else on the trench, but I think we're fine.
So Nightshade has the ability to use charm, and basically what that means is, why are you hitting yourself? But this time, instead of your older brother yelling at you, it's the game yelling at you. So we'll see if there's a way that Gao can get out of this, but I don't think he can. I think you're just stuck here.
This is a turnaround. I hope we don't have to come back to the trench.
So the problem with the Serpent Trench is that, since I talked about the boss, the forced encounters being normalized, those 2 are going to be there basically no matter what. So Drinksglue is going to pivot to another strategy, which means we finally get to go see one of Terra's checks here.
So that would have been... So it will be a little bit better off if I do have to go to the trench later on in the seed, because I'll be able to one-shot those guys. Right now it's going to take me a full few turns to work my way through them. So I'll just pivot and go somewhere else. There's no point in trying to linger through something that's going to be really difficult when I have a plethora of other checks at my disposal.
All right, so there's some information we can detect here as he's going up to fight the Welk spot. If there's a character in that little hole right before we went into the cave, that is going to be the reward if we find Umaro later on in the seed. And we also get to see what the reward at the Welk spot is. If a Narsh guard comes out, this reward is going to be either an Esper or an item. If we see a character pop out, then the reward will be that character. So let's see what we find. We've got Strago in the cave, and we have Dataluma as the boss. So this is a pretty good boss to find early on, or any time raid, because Dataluma is not really very much of a threat. And there were Super Balls, just chucking them at the boss. They are really good early on in the seed in order to get yourself out of the problem, because as we mentioned, the bosses are scaled based on your progression. And in this case, we only have 2 characters. Now we have a third, and we have 1 Esper. So our enemies were at level 6 before that fight. Now they are at level 8 after that fight, plus or minus a level or 2, basically. And now that we have Strago, we have even more of the world open to us. So some of the things that Strago can give us is pain and suffering. Because
let's go do some pain and suffering.
Because his checks are considered by the community to be the worst in the game. And you'll see why in a second. He opens up Fanatic's Tower, where you recruit him in the World of Ruin in the vanilla game. You can only use magic inside the tower. However, there is a dragon halfway up. There is a high-tier item at the top that you can get out of the chest, and you get a reward at the bottom. So it's actually 3 different checks in one area. The problem is you can only use magic while in the tower, and as you're climbing the tower, there is no way to warp out of this section. Basically, the game treats this entire area as an event, and it only turns off the event bit when you hit a certain tile on your way out. So that's why you can't use the warp zone there. Since Drinks Glue's levels are pretty low, and he still has a couple of Super Balls, I think he's going to head up to try and beat this boss, because otherwise he would have to rely on Gao's magic, of which we've learned very few spells since we only have 1 Esper.
So on the 3rd floor of Fanatic's Tower is where the Pearl Dragon, or in Wolves Collide, any dragon lives. I am walking past that for now. I'll take him on the way out if I survive this fight. Dragons are not very difficult when they're unscaled. As long as you were kind of within scaling.
Dragons are unscaled, then what's on their skin?
No, dragons are scaled. But they're not very scary when they're unscaled. So if you're within a couple of levels, dragons are no big deal. So they're great to work in to get that experience boost, or when you come across a spell that's very powerful with a low learn rate. That's when you kind of want to route your dragons in. I'll take it on the way down because that dragon's going to be probably infinitely easier than whatever this could be. So it'd be a huge time waste if I do the dragon and I get up here and this is one of the tougher bosses in the game and I can't beat it. And it kind of is tough.
Oof. Yeah, so this is Guardian, one of the Kefka Tower bosses. Since it is a mechanical machine, it is weak to both lightning and water. Unfortunately, we have neither one of them. We don't have any Thunder Rods, and we don't have any water spells, so we're going to instead toss some kid toys at it, and we'll see what happens here. Very powerful Magitech type abilities, as Gao is hanging on 3 HP in a dream here.
Let's see if that gets him. I would really like for a fractional HP attack to be the next attack here.
Yeah, so Guardian has several different battle scripts. The first battle script is through for some Magitech type attacks. So laser, the diffuser, the missile, the shrapnel, and now he's going to change over to Ultra's battle program, which is tentacles and just the fight command. And unfortunately, we were 1 HP short.
I can't believe you did a
2
4.
HP shorts of fighting that.
I can't.
You got hit by 4 and died. Tickled to death.
That's all right.
All right, so what are you going to do? Are you going to try that again, or are we going somewhere else?
We're going to Burning House.
Okay, So the one thing to know about that is since there was a ghost sprite or an NPC sprite dancing with the rest of the fanatics at the bottom of the tower, that means that that check will reward us an Esper eventually. So Drinksglue can file that away and say, hey, if I get to 8, I know where my 9th is. So that sort of cuts the guessing down in the game. And that'll be really nice for us later on. Strago also opens up 2 other checks, the first of which I think you mentioned, Glue, you want to go in now, which is the Burning House, or affectionately known as the Casa del Fuego in the Worlds Collide community, where you have to dodge a wrench. No, you have to dodge some flames on the way to the end, and if you can get past those flames and defeat the boss, you will get the reward. The other is Ebbett's Rock, which I didn't even realize is an area in Final Fantasy VI until the randomizer. It's one of Strago's side quests after you recruit him from Fanatic's Tower, where he defeats the legendary Haidon and the Hyde Knights, our favorite 50s jazz band. So you could do the Burning House in either the World of Balance or the World of Ruin. And in here, we are going to fight some random encounters. We'll see how good or bad they are. And hopefully we make it out of here alive.
So fun thing about Haydn is you can actually fight Haydn multiple times. Gung Ho, I think his name is Gung Ho, Strago's pal, Strago's buddy,
Yep.
will start walking around in Thamasa after you defeated him the first time, and you just talk to him, and he will respawn him back up in the cave.
That's not fun. Why would you ever want to do that? Yeah, so unfortunately this fight here, the Naughty, is probably one of the worst, random encounters you could find because you cannot run away from them. And as you just saw, they do not give any XP. They only give MP. And there are 2 different sets of encounters here in the Burning House. There are those Naughties, and then there will be this grouping here of these fireballs and these wizards. I believe, are the wizards the ones that may drop the rods as a reward?
No, they are not.
Okay, so it's the other powers like this. And fun. Happy fun times. Do you want the hero ring? Do you want the ribbon? Do you want the experience egg? We only have 2 relic slots, and we really want 3 relics on our gal here. So the other option is to go to Ebbett's Rock. As I mentioned, you have to find 22 and no less pieces of coral to feed to the chest, and then you can fight twice. So since Drinksglue has a couple of Super Balls still on deck, going to fight checks that have just bosses at the end of them is probably going to be his prerogative for the foreseeable future here, and we have to make sure that he can count to 22 appropriately. So I'll just say some random numbers here to confuse him, like 7.
Ocho, Siete, Once.
Apparently Glue counts in Spanish, and that's how he gets around annoying people like himself. So one of the things about Worlds Collide that I really love about this game is that there isn't one way to finish a scene. In some other randomizers, it's sort of a key item hunt, whereas in Worlds Collide, in order to unlock Kefka, you need to get a certain number of characters and a certain number of espers, and we don't stipulate which characters or which espers you need to get. You can just get whomever you want, wherever you want. As I mentioned, there is a character gating logic to each scene, so sometimes it could be a bit linear, but other times you could race against other people, because that's what you usually do with randomizers is, it's difficult to do PBs when each seed is different, but nonetheless, when you race against other people, they may have multiple different ways through the same exact seed. And oh boy, we have Oh My Goddess here in Ebbett's Rock, one of the statue bosses. So let's see if our Super Balls will help us out here. Otherwise, we might be in trouble with the very large lightning attacks that Goddess will do. Thankfully, we don't have the fight command, because she may counter with Love Token, which is similar to that charmed ability that Nightshade did earlier in Serpent Trench. However, a couple of bouncy boing boing Super Balls, and the Goddess is down. Really nice fight there, Glue.
Alright, so that should be a decent amount of levels. That will make things roll a little bit smoother. It's a shame I don't have Catcher because she does have a piece of Minerva, which is probably the most useful armor in the game. Best is up for debate, but it's incredibly useful, incredibly valuable. It would have solved a lot of problems, you know, if I come across Merton, then I can obviously, you know, don't have to worry about taking damage when I fire off Merton on myself.
Yeah, I mean, you do have a flame shield and a red jacket, so you're kind of like doubly protected from fire magic now. It's just unfortunate that some of your first bosses have not been fire-based, right? Because then those bosses would have been just easy. So, why are we collecting coral in Ebbett's Rock? Not quite sure, but I don't know. I've never fed a treasure chest before, and maybe it's sort of like a symbolism of a clam. Do clams eat coral? What eats coral? Besides plastics. Recycle.
It's never fully explained, but we don't argue with it.
Alright, so here is one of Terra's checks. We're going to go up to Zozo, and we have to fight against the conga line of people that are lying. And in Worlds Collide, one of the interesting things, which we will probably not see during this run, but the clock that you have to set in Zozo famously by talking to all of the residents, it's, you know, the 6-10-50, I believe, in the vanilla game. We actually randomize it in Worlds Collide, so you do have to talk to all the NPCs and figure out the clues in order to unlock that one chest that does have a chainsaw in vanilla. It'll have some other random item in this game, but one of the fun things about Worlds Collide is we do try and incorporate some of those smaller world beats or game events via the objective system, and we have them called quests. So one of the quests is setting the Zozo clock, another one is helping out the injured lad Miranda, and we may see another one later on by saving or letting Sid die. Solitary Island. Oh, how about a spicy chicken? Are you hungry, Glue? Who ordered DoorDash?
We're gonna have a talk after this, Schwantz.
Listen, when I vetted the seed, you told me just look for experience eggs, and I found 2 of them in the very beginning looting path. I didn't actually look through most of it.
That's all right. If you know where he's at, then he can't be over here. So let's go over here.
Well, one of the things that is, you know, with the bosses being shuffled instead of random, is that you will only see a boss once. So we know that that is Poltergeist's home, and we will not have to go fight him ever again, unless we really, really want to. But he is a rather difficult boss that likes to use the stop ability on the first turn, and that's exactly what happened. So once you get stopped, the fun does stop. So we're instead going to go to the Leet River here, which is another one of Terra's checks, and let's hope we get some fun random encounters here. Note that the encounters are not in the spoiler log, so you can't even blame me for that.
That's just bad RNG to come across those type in multiple spots, but hey, it happens. It happens.
So the Leet River is a check that does take a while. However, in Worlds Collide, we sort of, in our vein of normalizing random encounters, we've also normalized the Serpent, the Leet River, where you only fight 4 random encounters, no matter which runner would go through this. Multiple people who play this. You get 3 encounters on the first shot, and I didn't realize that absorbs fire.
I forgot that's the Phoenix Cable one. I was just looking at the sprite. I didn't look at the name.
So you get 3 encounters before the first save point, and you get 1 encounter after or before the second save point. That's the one where, you know, if you were a kid and you wanted to gain some levels, you could hold your button down on or staple a wrench to a controller and just go around the loop, you know, the whole entire time.
It takes about.
We will not see that from Drinkswift.
It takes about a week, by the way, if you just put it down like turbo controller and come back to level 99. So someone may have done that when they were a kid. We won't say who.
Get out the duct tape. So as he's going through this Leet River, he's learning some spells, but also gaining some XP. And part of the challenge with Worlds Collide is making sure that you not only have do it as fast as possible. Obviously, this is a speed run after all, but more importantly, that you keep your levels ahead of what the enemy's levels should be. Now, you'll run into difficult bosses, as we've done already in this seed, where even if you are higher level than the boss, it won't matter, because the boss is just difficult. But normally speaking, you want to keep your levels ahead of where the scaling is. And if we're going to do math on stream again, we are at level 10 here with 3 characters and 2 espers. And I think your hot levels are a little bit higher than that.
We're level 22. After this, we might be 23 because Aquilas do give a lot of experience. They're one of the most experienced. There's another formation where you can have this bird and the 2 Chaos Dragons, where it's one of the most experienced dense encounters in the game. And it's the only super experienced dense encounter that has the enemy that has a weakness to something, and those are all weak to ice.
Yeah. Do the Chaos Dragons ever do anything? I feel like their battle script is to just wave at you with their paltry arms.
They don't do anything for like 3 or 4 turns, and then they can cast
Okay.
Disaster on you. So that's why it seems like they don't do anything.
Okay.
They're just waiting
That
for the
makes sense.
dangerous stuff to come out.
Yeah, I believe every time you see that bird, you're supposed to go. Oh, another fun Kefka Tower boss. We're seeing them all today. This is Inferno. Drinks Glue has to win this fight in 3 turns. And the reason why he has to do that is because if he doesn't, and all 3 of the parts of this boss are still left hanging around, this boss will cast Delta Hit, which basically will petrify your character, and that's considered instant damage. However, Drinks Glue is a smart speedrunner, and he knows that the Morph command doubles your magical damage output and halves your incoming magical damage, right? So basically what he did there was use Morph for a turn or 2 and killed the enemy. We did find an Illumina, which is interesting. It's one of the better defensive pieces of equipment in the game, in spite of the fact that it's a sword. And it will give him basically 50% magic evade and physical evade. And in Worlds Collide, yes, we did fix the evade bug, along with a few other bugs from the game, the sketch glitch, the Vanish Doom bug, certain things like that. There's also a switch that allows us to make the undead property of bosses on or off. In this set of flags, the undead bosses keep their undead property, but in most normal race flag sets, we turn that on so you can't cheese the boss. You have to beat it the hard way. You have to suplex your train. You can't just Phoenix down it, am I right?
Now, I have a question for you, Swan. So let's say I really wanted to suplex that train, and I came across it, and my character didn't have Blitz. But I found a Blitz character later. I wanted to, suplex that train. What can I do?
Yeah, so in Worlds Collide, one of those fun little quests that we have, leaning into the memes, of course, is suplex the train. So you could actually set your final Kefka unlock condition to be go suplex the train. In order to do that, one, you need a Blitz user. So if you ever do that, you're guaranteed to find a Blitz user in your seed because of the logic and the brilliant coding that we have in our game. By the way, this is sort of an open source type game, so anybody can contribute, things as they see fit and as the design council pleases. We try to keep it as vanilla as possible with some exceptions, obviously. But if you find your Blitz user after you've already encountered the Ghost Train boss, if you have Sabin, which gives you access to the Phantom Train check, you could hop aboard the train. Oh, speaking of which, you can actually hop aboard the train and ride it. And then it will immediately go, oh, you want to fight the Phantom Train? Let's do it right now. So after you've completed the Phantom Train check, if you go back into the Phantom Train, you'll always fight the Ghost Train boss. So, in lieu of wasting a Phoenix down there, Blue decided to cast Life 2 on the Ghost Train, and the Ghost Train goes bye-bye. It's unfortunate that we don't have Blitz for Gao, but hey, we'll suplex the train another time. So Tritalk is one of those locations that is not what we call character gated. So anybody can go to Tritalk at any time. However, it only rewards an Esper or a high-tier item, and unfortunately this high-tier item is fixed ice, which we will not be seeing this scene, much to the delight of some of the members of our community.
One member.
I also am not a fan of fixed dice, but I'll use it if I have to. So, here we see that the dragons have also been shuffled amongst themselves, and our dragon from Fanatic's Tower, the white dragon, has been shuffled over here to the right. And you're seeing the effects of how good the Illumina can be as a defensive weapon. Those Pearl casts miss Gao twice, because he's using that Illumina with 50% magic evade and 50% physical evade. So he's going to dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge out of the way about half spells that we see coming our way. Valiant Knife is the reward from the White Dragon. So in addition to dragons dropping you 200 XP per level, you can do the math off stream if you want to figure out how much that actually is. They will give you 50 MP, which basically means you learn any spell that you want. They also drop their vanilla items, so in this case a Pearl Lance from the White Dragon, making sure that we pet all of the dogs and validating our seed here.
Seed is complete.
Yeah, seed is complete, and it will also drop a high tier item from that high tier item pool. In this case, it was a Valiant Knife. The Valiant Knife, it's one of those high-end weapons that does more damage as you lose health, which means you can very quickly approach the damage cap, so it's a really nice one to have. This is the mobilist check in the World of Ruin I mentioned before. You can talk to that girl down in the basement, and she will tell you exactly what the reward is. No, we will be taking your Palador away, kid. Sorry, you're going to have to find something else as a mommy besides the shiny stone. Alright, so we have Funbaba number 3, as we call him, and this is the fight where Funbaba first comes, and he will, if you fight him with a normal party of 3 or 4, he will blow at least 2 of your characters, or at most, rather, 2 of your characters away, but you have to have at least 1 character standing. And one of the interesting things about this fight, Blue, is if you had more people, you could actually figure out who Funbaba will blow away to leave you with the other 2 party members. If you kill off your characters before this Baba breath here, Funbaba will always blow away the dead characters before the living ones.
Yeah, with the 1 character, obviously you always got to have 1 character in your party, so really nothing just happens. He just blows you away. But this is one of the more difficult checks in a more standard racing flat set, just because you have to fight this boss. And this is a scarier boss, so you have to fight him with just 2 characters. And if you get your 2 weaker characters who haven't been as built up as your other characters by chance, it can be a scary situation.
Is this Ultros 2 or Ultros 4?
Ultros 2.
Ultros 2. Okay. So there are 4 different versions of Ultros in the game. And that was the one at the Opera House, as we do get Palador. So we are getting towards our goal. We're at 3 and 3 now. And you only have to pet the dogs once on the way in. Come on, keep it moving. This is a speed run after all. So yeah, about the Valiant Knife and low health with a single character. If Gao had a fight command, one of the things about Final Fantasy VI is, believe it or not, it's actually not that difficult to keep a character at relatively low health if you have the right equipment. With a thing like an Elemental Shield, or perhaps a Minerva, or in Blue's case, I think you still have the red jacket on Gao, am I right? That means that he will nullify, sort of some of the elemental spells. And if you could do that, that makes it really, really easy to keep your characters at a decent amount of HP. Additionally, with how scaling works with bosses, it's based on your progression, right? Characters, Espers, Dragons. In this case, it is 3 + 3 + 1, which gives us a scaling of 7 × 2, or 14. If we are significantly higher levels than the bosses, they're not going to do all that much damage most of the time. And wow, the naughty is really living up to its name today, huh?
That's all right. It's probably faster to reset, so I'm going to reset out of this and just come right back.
It definitely is. So the Cold Dust ability will freeze your character, and the only way to thaw them out is to cast fire on yourself. And unfortunately, since we only have 1 party member, you can't really do that. So that is much faster to reset and hope we don't get Cold Dust versus going back in. So one of the interesting things about Worlds Collide is there's also this concept called ability-based scaling. So in the vanilla game, the bosses have their usual scripts, in Worlds Collide, we have this concept called scaled element, where in the vanilla game, let's say Flame Meter, the boss, usually casts like Fire and Fire 2. If Flame Meter gets scaled up to a high enough level, it will instead cast Fire 3 and other more powerful fire spells. So bosses will keep the same elemental properties of their attacks, they just morph into different spells. And that works the other way too. If it's a boss that only casts, let's say, Ice 3 all the time, if you encounter them at lower levels, you might see, just single Ice or maybe Ice 2 or some other Ice-based ability. So I suspect what happened is that, I don't know if Naughty does Cold Dust all the time, but we might have accidentally scaled upwards there.
No, in the vanilla game it does Cold Dust, and it's because your timer is going on the floating con. It's just there to kind of slow you down. Same thing with the Rapper having Reflect and casting Condemn. It's all there just to slow you down.
Oh, good. So these aren't bosses. These are just annoyances.
Yep.
All right. So now we have a decision to make, right? So we fought in the first encounter and we reset. Here, this is the second encounter. We've already made it into the second room. There's only 2 more rooms to go. Do we want to wait this out, or do we want to reset?
You definitely wait this out, because I did bypass, I think, 2 flames. So once I get past this, there's only 2 more flames on top of me. One of them is going to be a Naughty, the other one's going to be the Wizards, which will go down with 1 Volt 2. So at this point in time, I want to wait it out, because in Naughty's script, there's a 1 in 3 chance they can cast Cold Dust. So essentially, I was, if I go through 3 of them, on average, I'm going to get Cold Dust 1 time. So this was just statistically, this is on average RNG. So we'll take that.
I was half expecting a man face painted black and gold with a wig to come out and go Cold Dust, but unfortunately, the Naughty is just going to fire away at us here, and we've got nothing left to do except to thaw out. So let me ask you a few questions then, Drinks Glue.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the favorite parts of Worlds Collide for you? Besides the community, of course.
I love that every seed is inherently different. What do I mean by that? There are some other great randomizers out there. There is Free Enterprise. The thing I don't like about Free Enterprise is that if you find a Cecil or if you find an Edward, you kind of know what they're going to do or what you want them to do. Whereas in this case, in Worlds Collide, I had this Gao. I have done Super Balls. I've cracked rods. If I can find a decent spell, I'm going to utilize that, because Gao has such great stats. And in the meantime, I can just get by with one of the lesser tier sword techs. But that's what I mean, in that no two seeds are really alike, because of the shuffling of the abilities, because of the shuffling of the spells, because of the shuffling of the items. Everything is a little different every time.
Speaking of Cold Dust, we've got Tritok here. So Tritok is a boss that is weak to fire, in spite of the fact that, it says Tritok on the tin. That's just the Esper summon. And has very high physical defense. So if we did not have any Fire Rods or Fire 2, we could have used Sword Tech 1 there in order to beat a Tritok. And of course, beat a Tritok, get a Tritok. I told you this was the best seed for this submission.
What are the odds that the Ice Esper and the Ice Boss are all just living in the house full of fire?
Yeah, I mean, there's a heck of a lot of freezing stuff going on for that. Flames Be Gone is the best fire spell in the game. Or so I've heard. Alright, so now we have 4 Espers. So we do have a few checks that we have to go back to. We do know that the Fanatic's Tower is an Esper and not a character. We do also know that Poltergeist is at the end of Zozo. And the only other check that we have, I believe, Blue, tell me if I'm wrong here, is Kefket Narsh, that can be a character.
We're going to find out real fast if you give me Poltergeist Gated Seed, because what we're going to do is peek this, is we're going to walk up this mountain, and if we see a character at the Kefket Narsh spot where we can trigger the event, we know that there's a character there. There could also be a character at Zozo behind Poltergeist. Nothing is for certain. But we'll know real fast. And there could also be a character at Trench. Super Trench again, but
oh, that's right. Yeah, we haven't done.
Statistically, more likely there are better odds, higher odds that there's a character at Kefka Narsh or at Zozo.
Yeah, so that's part of the puzzle that you sort of have to figure out with each seed, right? Is what is the chain of command in order to finish the seed and get the characters. And here you see what happens when you forget to put your Moogle Charm on. You do get these random encounters here. So what is interesting is that Drinksglue the entire time is just trying to fight the boss of what's next, but he's also trying to figure out how to get his requirements for Kefka. And looming large, like an albatross around his neck, is that final Kefka fight. It is the same fight every single time, because Final Kefka is the only part of the game that is not based on the progression skill. It is the vanilla boss script at the vanilla levels, which I believe are level about 70 or so, for most of the parts of Final Kefka. So he's looking for things like access to instant death, access to mute, access to dodging an instant death physical attack that we'll go over later on when we get there. And so these are just the things that he has to sort of keep in mind here. And we're going to see whether or not this is a character, and it looks like it is. We've got a mimic. It's Go-Go here at Kefka.
Everybody's favorite character.
I really like Go-Go in certain instances. If I have a Blitz user, if I have a Throw user, if I have a Sword Tech user, because Go-Go can basically equip any command onto their menu. You could also choose to mimic another action. So if, say, Drinksglue was able to add Go-Go to the party, he's not in this seed, but if he was and would be breaking a rod, you could actually use the mimic to mimic the rod break, and you don't actually use the rod from your inventory. So that's really a nice part of Go-Go's utility. The unfortunate part of Go-Go's utility is that they cannot equip Espers in order to get additional stat bonuses, and their stats are pretty paltry overall. Now, with Worlds Collide's Moogle Cup flags, the set of options that we have for this run, the stats are set between 100% and 125% of vanilla, so characters will be slightly buffed compared to what they are in the normal game. So Go-Go is a bit more palpable in this set of options, but still, with having lesser stats, that's usually why people tend to, or runners tend to, go for other options in spite of Go-Go's utility.
Yeah, Go-Go is... I have a saying that Go-Go is the best possible fourth character. Just based on the way the ATB works, is that you can't really have an ATB filling for a character and have all four of your characters act. At some point in time, you're going to have a character sitting there waiting while your other characters act. So you're better off letting your 2 or 3 strongest characters act and your 4th or 3rd strongest characters just sit there and watch, and then only break glass in case of emergency. Maybe they cast a Life 3, maybe they cast a healing spell, something else.
Well, speaking of sitting and watching, this is Rhysopus and the Piranhas here. Now, in the vanilla speedrun, there's an audio cue as to when Rhysopus appears. In Worlds Collide, we actually randomize the amount of time that the boss Piranha appears between 5 and 55 seconds. Were you waiting for a specific amount of time, or are you just trying to guess as to when Rhysopus would come out?
I was just kind of I was playing it by feel. I knew at that exact second right there, and when I fired off one more dispatch, that was the right moment. I just had a gut feeling at the time I was done.
Yeah, so the fastest you can do it is 5 seconds, but it always seems like whenever you're playing a seed, it's always closer to 55.
I
so
had
now...
If you were paying attention, I was doing one Gao walkthrough on the screen. I was letting Gao do one walk across the screen as my reference for my point in time. Shout out to Magre for letting me borrow his fancy Gao little strolling on the bottom of the screen for this submission video.
Love it. Alright, so now that we have Go-Go, we could actually do another check called Zone Eater Cave, which is where you recruit Go-Go in the vanilla game. It's Go-Go's one and only check in Worlds Collide. And it is a pretty infamous one as well. And
the hardest boss in the game is in here.
Hopefully we won't see why, but maybe we will see why. So what you have to do is, similar to the vanilla game, take off the Moogle Charm here on the Triangle Island in the World of Drone, get engulfed by the Zone Eater, which in and of itself is RNG, because it can cast Demi or engulf or nothing. So we've had some runners that have had double-digit number of Demis in a row before getting engulfed, and sometimes it happens first time. It's just like that Panther from Mon Burgundy, right? 60% of the time it engulfs everything. The other problem with this check is what we're going to see in just a second here. The Chancellor is running back and forth across these steel beams. Well, they're not steel, they're like cave
Look at the rope bridges.
So if you get touched by a Chancellor, you get thrown off down below and you have to start all over again. And
So-
this guy right here is the bane of the existence.
There is a strategy to this. It's called Don't Be Afraid. And as you can see right there, it's not a
Scared
great
money don't
strategy.
make money. Scared money don't make money. So there is a thing that you can do, and it's called like a menu buffer. So when you jump onto the other platform, if you immediately enter into the menu, the sprites will still move one or two tiles in the background as you're transitioning into and out of the menu. And sometimes, as you can see here, you can have the Chancellor appear on the other side of you. So had Glue pressed the menu button there, he may have been able to go into the menu, and the Chancellor may have been further off to the right so that he could actually pass by him here. Unfortunately, he got hit by the long arm of the law. And when I mean long arm, Chancellor's got a long arm here. Or conductor. They're conductors from the Phantom Train reskin.
I think
The
in the
Chancellor's the
ultimate,
guy in the Opera House.
yeah, I think in the I don't know what they're called in the Ultimate game. I read that the other day. I pulled it out and I busted through it, but I don't remember what they're called. They're referenced.
Yeah, so this is what happens after the train gets suplexed. These guys just got eaten by a worm. Like, that's canon. Oh, and you're not going for the save either.
Of course not. This has never backfired once.
So this crusher ceiling, if you unfortunately are underneath it, it's a game over. And we hope to get out of here. Part of the problem is that these chests are randomized, so the item names, if they're long enough, they will take a while to write to the screen. And that could spell disaster for anybody underneath it. So we'll see what the reward is here at Zone Eater. But these are one of these, this is what we call a free check, where you don't actually have to fight anything in order to get the reward. And that is Cyan at the end, so we might not have to fight our spicy chicken after all here. So Cyan opens up 3 different areas of the game. Doma Siege in the World of Balance, where Kefka poisons all of his subjects, or he's not actually the king, is he? He's like
Citizens, people,
he's the guard, yeah.
yeah,
So
maggots, as
where
Kefka calls them.
yeah, where Kefka poisons his wife and his kid. He also opens up this check here, Mount Zozo, where you buy the WD-40. This is not a sponsored stream, by the way. And you have to go back and, see who or what is writing love letters to Lola. There's also a dragon back here, and if I know Drinks Glue, he's probably going to kill this dragon.
Oh, you bet.
And we do get a reward here, and there is a bunch of chests back here. There are, actually. Let me correct my English, proper grammar. This is a video submission after all. And then he also opens up Cyan's Nightmare, or Cyan's Dream, which is the world of Ruin Doma Castle. There's actually 3 different checks in Doma Castle, because if you remember, you fight the Stooges, you also then fight Rexol, and then there is an Esper on the Doma throne. So mimicking sort of the vanilla cadence of that particular world event, we do give 3 potential rewards in Cyan's Dream. There are qualifiers as to what you can get from what different parts of the dream, and if Blue decides to go there, then we'll talk about it when we get there. Otherwise, let's fight this Dragon from Phoenix game. So Red Dragon obviously weak to ice, so an ice rod should be a trick. If we don't have an ice rod, this dragon is also susceptible to bubble, so we can confuse it, so that this way it does not attack us and it will only attack itself, which is really nice. And hey, I heard you like omelets, so here's another experience there. And we'll see what's at the end here of the Mount Zozo check. There's also one last chest before we go, and it's our 7th hero ring.
Ooh.
Oh, and hey, we have Locke.
Yeah. So that's character
All
number
right.
6. Now we just need 5 more espers.
Yeah, so how does your strategy now change that you have one of your 2 goals for this seed?
We were probably going to do double Dream anyways, just because it's so lucrative, but I think I'm going to head back up to Walderville and immediately visit that weapon shop, because I haven't really found much in the way of spells, and I need to find something. If I had found something sooner, that would have been fantastic, but eventually you'll come across a good spell. You just have to have incredibly suboptimal 1 in 10,000 luck where you'll come across a tier 3 spell, or even flare in a seed like this. So eventually, with 5 more espers to go, I think I'll find one.
Okay.
The sooner I find it, the better, because it'll make my fights up to the final battle a little faster.
So we have an event ongoing in Worlds Collide community called the Moogle Cup, where it's sort of like a new player tournament where mentors are paired up with mentees. And if this was the Moogle Cup, I would sort of ask my mentee, well, now that we have Cyan and we have a character with sword tech, what does that mean? So why don't you go ahead and answer the question here as we pick up an esper for our weapon shop check.
So just like in the vanilla Final Fantasy VI, you can unlock all of Cyan's sword techs up to number 8 if you complete the Dome of Dream sequence. It's very similar. You go in there, you sleep in the bed, you wake up in the Nightmare world, you work your way through it, and if you're in this flag said, if you complete it, you will be rewarded with all of the sword techs unlocked, no matter what character they are on.
Yeah, so that is one of the objectives. Again, that's an optional objective that's not necessarily on in all seeds, so you can put it on if you want, or you can choose to not have it. This particular set of options does have that objective. So Locke opens up several areas of the world, including the Norse Weapon Shop, where we just showed you. In the vanilla game, it's Ragnarok the Esper or Ragnarok the Sword. In Worlds Collide, it's an Esper item choice, or an item and an item choice. He also opens up the Tunnel Armor check, which is where Grimsquid is going to now, as well as Phoenix Cave, where you divide your party into 2 different groups, walk through the cave, get the treasure, fight the dragon optionally, and then get the reward of the cave. So we'll see here what the Tunnel Armor check is, and it is a chariot with a horse on fire, except this boss actually has a floating property and is weak to fire. I don't understand what the sprites mean in this game, so this is an interesting one, chat. So let me talk a little bit more about the Morph Command. We've talked about it before, where it gives double the magical and physical damage, as well as halves incoming damage. So your Morph bar is actually based on how much MP you accrue throughout your various different fights, and it maxes out at 256 MP. So once you get to 256 MP, your morph bar will no longer get bigger. You can then use the Morph Command, and it ticks down morph time. I don't remember if it's like 1 MP per second, or if it's more MP per whatever. But anyway, the bar ticks down eventually, and the way to increase it is to go ahead and win more fights and collect more MP. So you should be using the Morph Command, maybe a couple times a seed, because you'll fill it up by the end. And, oh baby,
Hello.
Bahamut Esper has got the goods.
A little bit. Let's go fight, that sort of thing in the Serpent Trench now. Let's go fight those Nightshades now that we have Ultima.
Well, I mean, if it were me, I would probably go into Cyan's Dream as quickly as possible to get all of my sword decks.
We're actually going to do this just so I can for sure have Ultima when I go through. Because with the way this has gone, I would not be surprised if there is a Magimaster Doomgaze in there. So let's go ahead and get
something
Ultima
gross and
out. Yeah.
yeah. You're banking on it being a nightmare versus a dream, huh?
So there are some other bosses that will
totally
give me
understand.
trouble besides the Magimaster and the Doomgaze. Stooges would be a little annoying right now. The
vanilla
tentacles.
bosses of Cyan's dream.
Yep. The tentacles are always annoying when you have one person in your party or you have a compromised party. So there's a few other scary bosses out there besides the notable ones.
Yeah, so one of the other interesting things about Worlds Collide, and we don't see it in this flag set, right? Ultima is the regular ADMP. That was a question mark at the end of that.
No, so we do have a flag because Ultima is kind of broken. Most people, when they play through Final Fantasy VI, they work their way through. They get locked, they unlock Ultima, and that's all they do for the rest of the game. To kind of counteract that, we do have a flag called Expensive Ultima, where the MP cost of Ultima was 254 MP. So the most you could cast it with a full bar of MP is 3 times. And that just kind of slows down the usage of it. It is not on for these flag sets because we like to showcase a diverse pool of offense, a little more robust of offensive selections to be had. But we do have some counteractions to how powerful Ultima is.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things is if we had our Ultima at 256 or 254 MP rather, you can actually use Sortech 5 for Gao to refill your HP and MP. So Gao would be, in my opinion, with Sortech, a prime candidate to be an Ultimate caster. Normally, you would want your Ultimate casters to use an economizer or wear a gold hairpin, or perhaps have some way to absorb MP so you can continually cast that. And Sortech 5 is one of the ways you could actually absorb MP. So that's an interesting strategy that you can employ in your games as well. So we are heading into Cyan's dream or nightmare. We'll figure out which one of it is based on the bosses that we find here, right? But we have to collect the kids, and then we have to open the door. Are you doing this?
So there's a big
to ward off hexes.
debate in our theory. Do you go left or you go right there? I'd go ahead with both so I can appease both sides of the party, political parties.
Yeah, I go right. But that's just because that's what I'm used to doing. But funny enough, in Hauser's Mansion, I go left, which is different. I never noticed that before. Anyway, now that we've got our levels up here, we've got Sortech 6, which basically does an AoE effective damage that's based on the magic stat scout. And with this particular Esper, I believe it has a magic power +2 Esper bonus. So that will hopefully build up Gao's magic power so that the stunner ability, or Sortech 6, will hurt the enemy as a whole heck of a lot.
Sortech 6 is one of those abilities where it's really slept on, because in the vanilla game, Cyan does not have very good stats. His magic stat kind of falls under that. You don't ever really realize how powerful Sortech 6 can be. Plus, it can inflict stops, so it's a great ability in Worlds Collide to deal with random encounters, much less multi-target bosses.
Yeah, also, I mentioned earlier, we made Sortech usable with increasing the speed at which the meter fills up. In the vanilla game, Sortech is unbelievably, ridiculously slow. As we see, Setzer running across the top of the Phantom train carts, so we will be getting a 7th character here with Setzer. Setzer does open up 3 different areas of the world. He opens up the Kolingen Inn, where you recruit him in the World of Balance or the World of Ruin. You can do that check in either world. He also opens up Daryl's Tomb, which is that story beat where you get the airship back in the World of Ruin in the vanilla game. And he also opens up an option on the airship to go search for the Doomgaze spot called Search the Skies. You can run into Doomgaze randomly if you do not have Setzer, but Setzer allows you to just pick that spot and fight it immediately, so it's really good utility to have him, especially in a seed where we're looking for 2 more Espers, because the Doomgaze spot can only give you an Esper or an item. So as part of Glue's plan here, right, he sort of is throwing out a bunch of checks that he knows might yield something that isn't an Esper, because that's all he needs in order to unlock the final boss of the game.
Here's a question for you, Schwantz.
All right.
what is the relationship between Setzer and Daryl in your eyes? Because it's really unclear if they are partners or if they are friends or what's going on there. What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, I think they're platonic friends because Setzer has no room in his life for a relationship like that. He's too busy gambling and going off on adventures and trying to fly around the world fast. So I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's any there. But you know, who knows? We'll have to read the inscription on Daryl's tomb maybe and find out if there's an Esper there for us to find out. What is your fan theory?
So here's the thing. I mentioned I read the Ultimania guide the other day. It kind of at one point says they're friends, but then it also alludes to a relationship. So it's very, very confusing no matter what you read or what you infer or go off of.
Yeah, so we've got a vanilla boss here, believe it or not.
Yeah.
This is Rexel, and this is going to be a very difficult fight because Sword Tech does not allow us to target a particular target. And in the vanilla game, Rexel would normally possess one of your characters, and you'd have to get that character into critical levels of HP in order to have Rexel come back out in order to action. Right, so you can in the vanilla game use the Esper summon to kill off his 2 minions there in order to kill him. In Worlds Collide, we decided that this could be a really big problem if we ever encounter Rexel in Kefka's Tower, because Kefka's Tower, you've been fighting with only 4 characters, basically the entire seed, right? So you have a party of 4 that you have to split up 3 different ways. And if Rexel is in Kefka's Tower and you have to fight Rexel and he possesses your only strong character, then it's going to be almost impossible to get past that boss, right? So we decided to remove part of that battle script for Rexel. So he has just the second phase where it's him and his 2 minions, and you have to make sure that you target him instead of the minions, which is why you saw Glue use the Thunder Shield in order to start that fight off, because he knew that it could actually target the boss versus Sword Tech, which is sort of an untargetable piece of offense.
Yeah, I wanted to keep one Thunder Shield in the bag just in case I come across a tougher boss later on, because it's basically going to do quad 9s to anything I come across, as long as it doesn't absorb that element. I'm basically with a tough decision here. I think we're going to put a little strength on Gao now.
Okay. I mean, he's already level 48. I don't think he's going to gain very many more levels throughout the seed. We only have 1 more Esper to go.
Well, keep in mind, I have to fight 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more.
Oh, that's true, yes. I'm thinking in terms of, a normal Worlds Collide run where you split your party up and your party is not going to be... They're going to be fighting at most, 3 more bosses with the rest of the seed. So as you see here, as part of the randomizer, we do have a menu in the Coliseum for, on the left-hand side is what you're betting, on the right-hand side is what you're getting, and we randomize the enemies that you'll be fighting. So that menu is a toggleable option. You could either leave it on, you could leave it off, or you could reveal some or all of the different rewards. So the rewards that you don't have will be question marks, so you could sort of gamble like Setzer, and that will do it.
Ooh, Edgar. So that was one of the times where having the Lumina would come in handy in this situation, because he can proc an attack in the Coliseum. He can also proc attacks if he would rage, but we don't have the raged ability.
Or berserked. If he gets berserked, unfortunately.
We can berserk him one time if you want.
That's true. If you learn the berserk spell, you can certainly do that. So Edgar opens up 3 different areas of the game. He opens up the Figaro throne in the World of Balance, where you recruit him. He also opens up the engine room, where he is Gerard in the vanilla game. And he also opens up the ancient castle, where you get the Raiden Esper. So it's only 1 check down there. It's not both the Odin and Raiden check. It's only at the Raiden spot in the little basement there. And you can also fight a dragon. Now, Drink School elected to do the Search the Skies spot, and I agree with this because he just needs 1 more Esper. in order to enter Kefka's Tower and defeat the final boss. Unfortunately, it's another Kefka Tower boss here in Atma, and we'll see how Blue decides to get on with this fight. He ended up using the quick spell. Oh, go ahead.
There is a magic number in the back of my head I'm thinking up to, and that magic number is about 20,600, and that's how much I need Gal to be able to do in a single Sortex 7, because the tier 4 of Final Kefka has 62,000 HP, and I really need to be able to kill him in 3 turns, or in this case with quick 2 turns. Because a lot of the individual attacks like Havoc Wing and Hyperdrive, they're going to wipe Gal if they come off, so I really need to be able to make sure I can take him down before he gets into that phase where he can fire off those attacks.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And we'll talk about, the battle script once we get there, as we're almost there now, because we do have our 8th Esper, so 9th Esper, excuse me. So Final Kefka Unlock was complete. Were you ever thinking of going back to Fanatic's Tower?
At some point in time, when I found that Thunder Shield, that would kind of have been the moment to do it, because Guardian's weak to Thunder. I just never really made sense, because Doma Dream is such a fantastic check where I could have got 3 Espers at that point in time. Whereas Fanatics, I know it's 1. I really, 3 is greater than 1. Again, double check me if I'm wrong, but I think 3 is a larger number than 1. So in the same amount of time it takes me to do...
You're asking me to do so much math on stream now. So, grabbing the Genji glove off of the Figaro throne there, we were hoping to maybe get an Esper, I believe, that had one of our solutions to one of the parts of Final Kefka. And Ice Shield was nice to throw at the final boss. So what exactly are you looking for now that you've unlocked Kefka and are ready to take on the final boss?
I was looking for just that, sleeping bags, and then I might as well take those elixirs while they're here.
Okay. I thought that maybe you were looking for, like Calmness Protection or Life 3 Esper or something like that.
It would have been fantastic if that throne room was one of those Espers, but because there's 2 item shops there, I figured I'd just do that. Let's get that reward, 2 chances at my sleeping bags that I need, and then go from there.
Yeah, so normally in a Worlds Collide seed, we're looking for something called Calmness Protection, which is an instant death physical special that Tier 3 can throw at us. Unfortunately, we haven't found a way to mitigate it just as of now. So sometimes you're like, I don't have Calmness Protection, not a big deal. I have 4 characters. If 2 people get killed, then it is what it is. But I think we're going to roll the dice here and just hope that we have enough physical evade on Gal to avoid that particular conundrum. Or are you going to go look for some more protection?
So here's the thing, with that Cat Hood and the Illumina, I have Calmness Protection almost. It can hit, but it's in the really low percentages that I'm willing to accept that and say that is okay.
All right, so can you explain a little bit what the heck you even did? Where's Kefka's Tower? Why are we at the switches already?
Well, I'm utilizing my Kefka Tower skip now. There are 2 ways to go into Kefka's Tower. Oh, my Kefka Tower skip. You never heard of that in the middle game?
No. What is the Kefka Tower skip? Is this a glitch? I was told there was no glitches in this run.
It allows you to bypass the main walking point in the Inferno spot of Kefka's Tower. You can add it as an objective to your seed, and in this case, it isn't part of this flag set. In the vanilla game, you land with your 3 parties, you walk through, you fight the Inferno, you probably fight your 2 dragons and your 12 Atma as well, and then you make your way here to the switches where the party reconvenes but also separates again, and then fight your statues and your guardian. The skip allows you to bypass the first half of that, so you're right here at the end. Why am I using my skip first and I don't have the ability to fight the other battles on the other side? It doesn't really matter if I do this part first and then walk the tower twice, or if I walk the tower twice and then use my skip. So I'm just doing this first, just because.
That makes sense.
No rhyme or reason to it.
I'm surprised that you didn't peek the bosses on the other side. Or does it really matter what they are?
Oh, we're not afraid of anything.
You ain't afraid of no ghosts?
We got that dog in us.
Fair enough.
For the first walkthrough, obviously Gal has to come over to the right side because this is where you get the ambush spot, which is where Inferno drops down on you. It won't be Inferno because we saw him earlier and we kind of clobbered him with a Pearl Rod.
Yeah, so let's think about this and let's commentate a curse here about it right now.
Please do.
So remember when we were talking before about, oh, well, we've seen Poltergeist already at Zozo Tower. We don't need to worry about him. We've seen a bunch of bad bosses so far in this scene, including Guardian and Inferno and Goddess and Poltergeist and Rexall. And you had mentioned a few that you don't really want to see. Tentacles, Stooges. We have one more statue boss out there, Doom. And we have the omnipresent duo, the dynamic duo of Doomgaze and Magimaster.
Go on. Enlighten me. Why would I not want to see those fellas? Are they hostile? What's going on? What's your story?
They're pretty rough. So in the vanilla game, Magimaster is the boss that you fight at the top of Fanatic's Tower with only magic. Thankfully, we'll have access to Sword Tech here in Kefka's Tower if we encounter Magimaster. However, Magimaster in the vanilla game is supposed to be defeated by using the scan ability and figuring out what the weakness is. In Worlds Collide, we are not guaranteed to ever have the scan spell, and as you already saw in this seed, we're not guaranteed to have Life 3. So one of the positive things about Magimaster in Worlds Collide is we disabled the ultimate counter upon death, because otherwise it could render a seed impossible if there is no Life 3 in the seed and Magimaster is in a spot like Kefka's Tower where you have to defeat them to continue. However, Magimaster is definitely a formidable foe, having extremely high physical and magical defense, as well as the ability to nullify 6 elements, the ability to absorb 1, and the ability to be weak to only 1 at a turn at a time. Thankfully, Gal has Sword Tech 7, which is both defense ignoring, so that gets rid of Magimaster's extremely high physical defense, and it's a non-elemental fight, basically physical attack. So it means that we don't have to worry about Magimaster's wall changes. The problem that we have to worry about is surviving the fight long enough to deal enough damage to Magimaster, because Magimaster will take up to 2 actions per turn, and that can be rough with a solo character. I don't know exactly really what your defense looks like, except for the flame shield and the red jacket, unless you change that out somewhere. You trying on a new jacket? I see Gao's looking fancy in his clothes.
I did take off that experience egg because I was level 62, and there was a good 52, and there was a chance this fight could push me to level 55, and I have to walk a very long way to get to the next fight. It takes about 2 minutes from here to get to the next spot, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't on a level divisible by 5, in case this is by chance, you know who.
So any particular reason why you're not using the hero ring over the experience egg? Yeah, you won't gain as much experience from the fight, but won't you make the fights last shorter because you'll be dealing more damage? What's your thought process here between those two elements?
So the hero ring will add 25% magic damage, 25% physical damage. I will throw that on for the final fight, but there's really no boss short of the really, really tough ones, and some of them I've already seen, that won't take 2 turns. So if I have a hero ring on right here, I don't one-shot this Skull Dragon. It doesn't matter. It's going to take 2 turns either way. So I might as well have that experience egg on for this.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
There,
I think in the context of, you know, not a solo character challenge, right? It becomes a little bit different. In Kefka's Tower, I usually just get rid of the experience egg and make sure that my characters deal more damage because I'm dealing with a reduced party compared to what I'm used to, right? Whereas here, you're dealing with the reduced party for the entire scene, so that makes sense to me.
So there is also one other train of thought on this. There is one ability on tier 2 that is very devastating, and that is Flare Star. It comes from Tiger Face on the bottom of your screen. And Flare Star, it does damage based on, well, it's fire elemental, and it does damage based on the higher the level you are, the more damage it does. If I didn't have a way to negate fire damage, I probably would not be taking the dragons here, because Flare Star is just going to one-shot me. But because I have a red jacket and a flame shield, and I think I have a thunder shield as well, I would have a way to nullify Flare Star. So I am free to get as powerful as many levels as I want. But I would be making a grave mistake by going up as high as level as I am for the final fight if I didn't have a way to negate that Flare Star ability.
Yeah, so we talked briefly while you're doing some running around here about one of your favorite things about Worlds Collide. So tell us, what are some of your favorite things about the game that you didn't already mention before?
I like that in Worlds Collide, the hardest part of a seed is typically not the final boss. It is the opening, and it is this part right here while you're kept this tower, because your party is compromised. So you have to split your party up to 3 if you want to efficiently, in a timely manner, make it to the final fight. And there are a lot of scenarios where going through this tower pushes your levels up to astronomical levels to where the final fight isn't much of a challenge anymore. So this is really easy with a super character like Gao that I have now built, but a lot of times you'll find that you have lesser characters, lesser developed characters, or you just didn't find good things for those characters. So you have to find creative ways to get through the tower. And that's either walking it twice, that's risking it. If you risk it, you really hope to come across an easy boss, because a tougher boss will stonewall a weaker party.
Yeah, I do like that you do have to sort of not every seed is built the same, right? You sort of have somewhat standardized steps that you do take, towards the beginning of the seed, like a lot of other randomizers. There's sort of a standard opening route, but once you figure out what you have versus what you need, that's sort of where the world opens up to many different possibilities. And there's a lot of ways to kill a lot of bosses in this game. So it certainly makes for a really fun experience. A randomizer, by nature, is going to be different every single time. But I think what makes this game stand out from some of the other randomizers, as I mentioned, it's not character gate. It's rather not a key item hunt. It is based on just numbers of unlocking things, right? So it allows for many different ways to fight through a seed. And I think there's a lot of customization in Worlds Collide. I mean, we're watching one player right now basically just take care of the game with just a single character, right? And this is a self-imposed challenge, but you can also craft options to where, you unlearn spells as you get further and further into a seed. Or perhaps your party gets inflicted with bad status ailments if you run into one thing or another, right? If you kill too many bosses, maybe your party gets auto-condemned or something like that, right? There's so many different options with how to play Worlds Collide. It keeps it fresh and new lots of times. We do have a standard league called Ultros League, which is currently ongoing in its 6th season, where we race sort of a standard set of flags or standard set of options. And that's really fun because it allows runners to grind and practice a certain thing over and over again in order to help get themselves better and better. But we also have lots of different events sprinkled throughout the different weeks in the Worlds Collide community. Like, for instance, we have a particular race where a runner can change 1 or 2 options per week, and it makes a completely different experience based on 1 or 2 different knobs you can tune one way. So I think that's one of the great things about this game, is that it is so plug and play and customizable.
Definitely, and we do host, as Swan's mission, he was mentioning the Living Seed. which is one of our weekly asyncs, and we have a host of other asyncs with diverse flag sets, different ways, different challenges. You can craft a Worlds Collide seed and play through the various challenges. You'll find that in most seeds, there's kind of a route to things where you have an opening game, an early game, and that tends to be the most difficult part of the game. You got to figure out how am I gonna get cooking? What are the ingredients am I gonna use? How am I gonna go about the challenges? And eventually you reach a point where you just get very powerful. Nothing really poses a threat to you anymore. And then you kind of shake it up and you throw it all together. And that, yeah, you got to traverse Kefka's Tower, you got to split the party up. That nice warm feeling you had of nothing could stand in your way is kind of thrown out the window. And now something does stand in your way. It's 4 more bosses you have to get through with a compromised party.
Yeah. So in addition to, just customizing the options, there are also, alternate sprites, as we are seeing here with Gao. There's alternate palettes. There's lots of different ways that you can reward or challenge yourself based on what the seed kind of throws at you here. So we did get a snow muffler as a reward from that dragon. So the snow muffler is probably the best defensive piece of equipment for physical defense in the game. Very high defensive stats for physical-based damage. It also absorbs ice, and it does a 50% damage reduction to fire spells. So Blue was trying to figure out, do I need this piece of gear, or am I okay with the red jacket?
I'm gonna rock the Alumina for the evasion, the Aegis shield, and the Cat Hood for a little more evasion, and then I'm gonna leave the red jacket for that 4-star I mentioned earlier.
Okay. Yeah, because the red jacket does nullify fire, as the term red jacket sort of implies. It also gives a lot of great stat boosts to physical-based builds. It gives you some extra strength, it gives you some extra speed and some extra stamina, which should definitely help with your Sword Tech 7-based character that you have there. So one of the reasons you're choosing to use Sword Tech 7 rather instead of 6 is because in Final Fantasy VI there is a damage cap. One action is not really the right word, but one attack can only do 9,999 damage at most. Sword Tech 7 is actually 4 different attacks. So even though Sword Tech 7 is only 3,000 or so damage per attack, it allows Glue to get over that 9,999 damage barrier and allows him to be closer to 12,000 damage per turn. So that's why you're choosing to use 7 over 6, even though you had a magic power +2 Esper on Gal for a little bit. So keeping the strength Esper certainly makes sense here as to why you're choosing this particular build over something else.
So I will alter. Typically, what I like to do is if I find a magic power +2 Esper, that just goes on character. And you pick a character, and I just need to stay on that character for the rest of the seed because, again, you don't need 4 super characters. You just need 2 or 3 because you can't have all of your characters act without ending up with some of your characters waiting. But in this particular challenge, I kind of switched back and forth because I'm going to have some magic attacks on Tier 1 and Tier 2 I'm going to fire off. I'm going to crack those shields. And I just need to make sure they do quad 9s when they are multiplied and have a damage reduction on them.
Yeah, so Final Fantasy VI has this concept called split damage, where you could make your spells a single target or multi-target. And if you do multi-target, well, it just basically halves the damage to every single target on the screen. In order to mitigate some of that, as Blue mentioned, he's looking to juice up his stats so that it does the most amount of damage even when split. So we mentioned this boss before when we were talking about the naughties. This is not a boss, this is a time waste. Narappa will cast Condemned on your crew. And Narappa is sort of annoying because it has a name Reflect. So you can't actually cast spells on it. It is susceptible to instant death, but you can't actually cast the Doom spell on it. It'll get reflected back on you, which is not very good. However, we have access to Sword Tech 8, which is Cleave, and Cleave will instant death things that are instant deathable. So good heads up play there. from Drink's Glue, knowing what the boss weakness is and switching it up from using Sword Tech 7 to 8 for that particular part. We'll also see Sword Tech 8 make an appearance on parts of the final boss. Am I correct there?
Definitely, because there are some parts that are listed up on Tier 1 and Tier 2. Unfortunately, with Narappa, you can't get Sword Tech 8 off before Condemn will come out, so you have to sit there and wait through the animations, but we were able to. Again, we only got one off, so we'll take it.
Alright, so one of the things Glue is doing now right before the final fight is making sure that he's got his equipment. The Hero Ring to buff up the damage, the Ribbon to make sure that he does not have any nasty status ailments happen to him. There are attacks on several tiers of the final boss that will give you bad negative status ailments, and some of them will end the fight immediately right away, like Zombie or Stone, or Petrify rather. So making sure that you have that ribbon on is a good idea. We also saw him equip the Siren Esper, and that is because Siren casts Mute on the entire enemy team, and that'll be helpful for Tier 2 when he goes up against Magic. So let's talk about the final boss here. So this is Kefka, and you'll notice the abbreviated cutscene where we don't get some of his famous lines like "you sound like chapters from a self-help book," where it's just going to be Kefka up here sitting in his tesseract, if you will, right? It's that 3D. It's not actually a cube. It's a diamond, right? It's a pyramid. I don't know. I'm trying to sound cool and math and smart.
It's a pyramid.
I can only add on stream. I can't talk about 5-dimensional beings. So anyway,
It looks friendly.
the final Kefka fight is in 4 different parts. See, I can't math. The final Kefka fight is in 4 different parts. So the first part here is basically all physical attacks throughout most of the fight. There is one part, the longest arm there, that's closest to us. It's the right arm of the boss. That is susceptible to instant death, so we're going to go ahead and do Sword Tech 8 immediately to get it out of the way. The head is will death counter with an ability called Quake, and that will deal a lot of damage to our Gao. Gao has a stupid amount of HP because Glue went ahead and put on the Muscle Belt, which increases your HP by 50%. So he has enough health to survive a Quake in case that happens, because we are not using any target-based abilities with Gao. We are using Sword Tech instead, though we don't actually care what we're hitting. And of course, I say that and you just use Fire 2 on the head, which is the weakness of the face. So the face will death counter with Quake if it is the last thing alive. That balled up fist will not death counter with anything. However, it counters basically all of your attacks. Go ahead.
So I took off the Hero Ring because, as you see, I knew I was going to do quad 9s without it. So I might as well put that Muscle Belt on, and that's going to allow me to survive a Havoc Wing or a Hyperdrive or some other abilities throughout the fight.
So that Dread ability that actually somehow missed Terra is one of the things we were worried about, because that will inflict Petrify on you, effectively ending the fight if you're not careful. So that's what the ribbon is used.
Terra might make it to Tier 2 here. Oh wow, Terra's surviving.
Yeah, so normally when you have other party members, you can use a thing called weight tricking, where you go into a battle menu and will stop that little bar from filling up, or in Gao's case, counting down from morph. There is a permamorph. I said this was going to be glitchless, but I guess it's kind of a glitch, where if the morph command runs out between the transition between 2 tiers, Gao will actually stay permanently morphed. I don't think we'll see that here, because I don't think there's enough time to do that. As Tier 2 is 4 different parts, the first thing that he's going to do is cast Siren, so that will mute magic in the back. The next thing he'll probably do is Sword Tech 8, take care of Tools, because Tools is susceptible to instant death. And that leaves us with just 2 parts of the final fight here. The Tiger that we were talking about earlier, that casts some nasty spells, including Flare Star, as well as may do things like Doom Tusk and End Cross, that freeze ability that we saw way back when from the Burning House and the Serpent Trench. So that's the things that Tiger can do. So he would normally be our next priority target, but with untargetable offense with Sword Tech, that essentially means that we're going to go ahead and try and kill everything. Now, we do have a set of shields here. The ice shield is interesting because Tiger is actually weak to ice. So normally this would do more damage. Oh, it did do more damage to Tiger than everybody else. So that is the weakness for Tiger. That blue guy that's sitting on top of the Tiger there, that is hit because Square was so original in their naming during this time period that basically hit will do physical attacks every turn and will death counter with a move called 10 hits, which is 10 physical attacks. So we could hopefully survive that with our Aegis shield and our red jacket.
So if you noticed, I did Siren before I did Sword Tech 8, and I almost ate it there because he can muddle you on his first turn. And if I queue up Sword Tech 8 and then I get muddled, I'm going to Sword Tech 8 myself, and I'm going to die. So I dodged a bullet there. One of the little nuances, the little challenges in this fight that make it unique.
Yeah, it's interesting because Sword Tech 8 is one of the only commands where ATBs are actively filling while you're charging up that particular command. So that allows enemies to sometimes get in multiple turns while you're waiting for that thing to charge up. So magic will always go first, followed by tools, followed by hit. Then you have a chance to act with your party, and then Tiger goes. And after Tiger goes, it's back to magic, and then your party will go from thereafter. So as you're charging up Sword Tech, there may be a possibility that magic will end up getting his turn, a second turn, before you can get the Sword Tech off, which is what Blue is alluding to. These turn-based RPGs really allow you to sort of play a chess game within a video game, of who gets to go first and who is acting and what am I doing on this certain turn.
So if you saw there, out of 10 hits, 10 hits is the death counter for the aforementioned hit. He will fire off 10 regular attacks. 10 came out, 8 hit me, or excuse me, 8 missed, 2 hit me. And that's pretty much in line with what my invasion is for the very crucial part of this tier that we're coming up on.
Yeah, so tier 3 here is 2 parts. It is sleep and lady or girl. So girl has 9,999 HP, absorbs all elements, and will cast Pearl Winds to heal the party and Life 2 to bring sleep back. So she is our number 1 target here, and we want non-elemental magic, which is why we've learned Ultima. And hopefully this will take girl out in one shot. Now, Sleep has 40,000 HP, and when he gets... Oh, okay.
Okay, well, we miscalculated, and now we may pay the price.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
So the next thing that happens is that Sleep has 40,000 HP, and when he gets under 10,000 HP, we'll take every turn to use a ability called Meteor, which is a very high-powered but mostly very inaccurate spell. And he will death counter with an ability called Calmness, which is what we're going to have to be on the lookout for. It's an instant death physical special. And Gao's evade is over 100, but there still is a chance that the Calmness spell can hit. So
now,
hopefully
this is where
see that.
This is where you can commentate his curse. So, but let's see, moment of truth.
Yep. So by using Quick, Gao Blue is making sure that Sleep does not cast Meteor at all, and this will get his Calmness here, and we'll see what happens. That is 1 block from Gao from that Illumina, and we are up to Final Kefka, and this is probably the easiest part of this fight with this particular challenge. Actually, maybe not. It's probably the hardest, actually. Now that I think about it.
If I had, typically when you come up here, if you're level 40, 45, you have about 3,000 to 4,000 HP, and you are very much in danger of having that character wipe, because Havoc Wing, it doesn't care. Havoc Wing just loves to kill you. Everything about this fight is designed to just pick you off one by one, which when you have a more robust pool of offense or spread across characters, less of a deal. But when you have one guy sitting there standing there, you are always at danger of dying while you're in this fight when you were picking this fight 1v1.
Yeah, so what Kefka will do is he's got 62,000 HP, and he will cast an ability called Fallen One on his first turn to reduce your party to 1 HP if he doesn't get below the 30,000 HP threshold. And since we used Quick to queue up 2 attacks at once, and each attack is doing, around like 18,000 damage, we will get under that 30,000 HP threshold. That means that Kefka will transform into his Goner phase, where he may counterattack at any point, except when he's using this charge up for this ability here called Goner. So we now have 1 turn, or in the case of using Quick, 2 turns to act in order to go ahead and throw as much stuff as we can at Final Kefka here. The Goner ability will go off, we'll get some damage, but the real trick is going to be after Goner, if we ever see it, where Kefka may counter with things like Havoc Wing and Hyperdrive, the most damaging physical and magical attacks in the game, as well as may counter with Ultima if under 10,000 HP. But I'm pretty sure that you've done enough damage here, Glue.
Yeah, we will not be seeing any of those attacks because all of those attacks hurt.
There it is. The timer stops on the first flash of Kefka there, 1:50:17. We kept it under 2 hours for a solo Gal run with a lot of roadblocks at the beginning of the game. Well done, GG's.
Thank you, Schwantz. And then again, I want to give a special thank you to Magre for letting me use his little Gal gif where he's walking across the screen there. It adds a nice little touch to the solo Gal challenge. And if you've never seen Gao in his fancy tuxedo, it's such an impressive look. If you can, go on down to Macy's, go on down to your local department store and recreate it every day. You'll feel like $1 million.
Yeah, Gao cleans up nice. He goes from wild child to the wedding +1, if you will. So now that we've beaten the game, let's sort of talk about how this run went compared to some of the ones that you've been practicing, and then let's also talk about Worlds Collide, I guess, just a little bit more in terms of why we think it would be a good addition to any charity. So let's tackle the first question first about how is this run compared to some of the ones you've been practicing.
Well, I think you had to mention this earlier, whereas in Worlds Collide we don't really have, you have individual PBs, but we don't have community personal best, because as you saw in this seed, I went to one spot and it was just a wall, or it was just something that threw a wrench in my plan, so I had to pivot. In this particular flag set, you can only play the course as it lies. When it gives you an obstacle, you just go about it the best way you can, and if you have to go around that obstacle, you have to go around that obstacle. So it was a very rough early game, but once we got our toes in the water, once we got swimming a little bit, things really took off, and then all the things came together that you need for the final fight. And then luckily, we were able to get through that calmness. I say luckily, but you ever played Final Fantasy Tactics when you go to attack somebody and you can see the percentage that it's going to hit them? That was a very low percentage that calmness hits me, and luckily, the RNG didn't go to one extreme on me, so we got through, and then the rest was history.
You know how it goes, though, Glue, that XCOM 5% turns into 100% every single time.
Yep, exactly.
And you mentioned dipping your toes in the water. Actually, we noped out of the Serpent Trench 3 times, so
yep.
Maybe we'll choose a different metaphor next time. But yeah, so that's one of the interesting things about, the randomizer is one of the great things I love about watching randomizer runs is that you watch the runners react on the fly to what's being thrown in front of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
There isn't really there's sort of a script to follow because you sort of crafted and thought out about, all right, well, the final fight is always the same, and the beginning of the game is always the same, but we're going to have to fill out everything in between, and that's where decisions have to be made. Mistakes will happen
Yep.
in our case, and we have to recover from it, and that's the great hallmark of a randomizer runner is having the game knowledge in order to face whatever the challenge is that's around that corner.
Yeah, that's just another thing I love about Worlds Collide is I've been playing Final Fantasy VI for, over 25 years. I played it probably once a year from 2020, from 2000, and each time you do something a little bit different, and all that knowledge that you've done, all the crazy things you've done in the vanilla game, pretty much all of them apply and come over to Worlds Collide. So if you have a kind of foundational knowledge of Final Fantasy VI, Worlds Collide you'll pick up very fast.
Yeah, Worlds Collide is rooted in a lot of vanilla game knowledge, but applied to a randomizer. Whereas with some games, it's, you know, the vanilla game knowledge gets lost and the randomizer takes over. You certainly need to know both. And learning the randomizer is relatively straightforward, I think, but how deep the well of vanilla game knowledge is that prepare you for the challenges that lie ahead is one of the reasons why we keep coming back and playing again and again and again. It's one of the reasons why we're like, oh, I didn't know that this happens when you did something way earlier in the stream, right? I had no idea that this was going to happen because you know, there's millions and millions of permutations of situations that you can run into in a randomizer setting. So
yeah, it's live real-time results, because if you go up to Mount Zozo in the vanilla game, you fight Dataluma and you just hold A through the entire fight, even in a quick run or a speed run or a solo character challenge. But as we saw earlier, it was Poltergeist, and if he stops you, you know, next thing that's coming out is Blaster. There's nothing you can do about it, so you move on and you adapt.
We stopped in the name of love, if you will, at that particular boss fight there. So we have anything left, Drinks Glue, that we want to say about, you know, our game, our run, other than the community is really warm and inviting and helpful. If you're interested in playing this game, or if you want to ask some more questions about the game to help you with your submission vetting, if you will, don't hesitate to join our Discord. ff6worldscollide.com is the website. There's a link to our Discord there, and we'll be more than happy to help people that are just starting out or to answer questions. You know, we have people that patrol the Discord waiting to throw themselves at you to help out.
Yeah, fantastic community, fantastic game. A billion different ways to play it. That's why I love, you know, we've done a lot of a lot of organized events in the past. Some challenges, some more based on our standard racing flag set. So I thought I would try something a little different. Let's give myself a solo character. Let's tell myself I'm only using this character, and let's see what happened. And about 2 hours, 1:50:17 is my official time. About 2 hours is my estimate. I think the floor, the minimum time you can do this in, is about 90 minutes. I think with some little worse RNG, you would come around, you know, 2 hours and 10 minutes or so. But I came in within time, and could have been a little bit faster with a little better RNG, a little better luck.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, the robustness and just the sheer amount of different things that you can do with this game also allow for wonderful bid wars and donations incentives too. So we could always add that into our thought process. We have items called rename cards where we could meme it up a little bit for that sort of type of incentive. We could also, you know, make the runner be forced to either save or kill Sid. We could force the runner to go do the Opera House cutscene. That's always a fan favorite. So we could always throw those options in there as well. That obviously will affect the estimate because, you know, if we're doing those quests, it's going to take a couple minutes, but still definitely something that we could look to do.
And you just gave me a fancy idea. Maybe we take Gal's wonderful attire, we throw it back in the closet, and maybe that could be a possible incentive. Something to think about. Do we want Feral Gal, or do we want Dressed to the Nines Gal? We can play a little game.
Do we want Wild Child, or do we want Wedding +1?
Yep.
It'll be up to the audience. So thank you so much for coming up with this solo challenge and for playing through it. And this has been a lot of fun, you know, sort of explaining how to do this sort of thing in Worlds Collide. It's a little bit different than a normal seed, and hopefully everybody has enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Swans, for helping out with me. Thank you again, Gal. Magre, for lending me your Gal. And then, you know, I hope everybody that watches or everybody that checks us out just has fun. That's all I can ask for.
Yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Good night.
Thank you.